Syracuse probably needs at least 20 regular season wins to reach the NCAA tournament. Can they get there? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcast. On this week's Poll Friday, I asked you all this question about Syracuse basketball, which is, how many regular season wins do you think they're going to get? Let's dive right into it. We are entering year 3 of the Adrian Autry era. In fact, tomorrow, Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern, Syracuse basketball has its first exhibition game of the season. They take on Buffalo, and then the following week on Wednesday, they take on Pace for another exhibition contest. And then, of course, you got to go to Monday, November 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern for the Syracuse basketball official season opener for the regular season. They take on Binghamton at home. So, Adrian Autry in year 1, 20 regular season wins. And as a result, Syracuse, they weren't one of the teams that we thought was going to hear their name called on Selection Sunday, but they did get an NIT bid. They just declined it before we were ever able to see it on Selection Sunday. So it was year 1, a pretty nice, successful year for a year 1. But then year 2 happens, which was last season, and they have 13 regular season wins. Of course, I am not counting what happened in the ACC tournament where they picked up that win against Florida State. There were about 300 votes on this week's Poll Friday, and the winner, about 60% of you said that Syracuse basketball this season will get between 20 and 24 regular season wins. In second place, 15 to 19 wins. Third place, this would be fantastic. I mean, if Syracuse were to get 25 plus wins, they're probably a top 4 to 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. That'd be pretty nice. And in last place, and hopefully this does not happen because this is what happened last year, 14 or less regular season wins. My prediction? Well, my prediction has to match the stakes of the season. The stakes of the season is you better make the NCAA tournament or else you can fill in the blank. So I'm with you, the 60% of you that voted that said 20 to 24 regular season wins. How do you get to 20 to 24 regular season wins? Well, let's talk about the schedule breakdown. So the ACC changed up the model a little bit. They are taking away 2 conference games for every team. And so as a result, now every team in the ACC, they get to fill those 2 games with whatever opponent they like. So Syracuse, as a result, will play 2 less ACC games this season, 2 more non-conference games this year, as opposed to last season. And to Syracuse's credit, I really like how they made their schedule, or at least its non-conference schedule for this season. Because Syracuse, they have these 8 games on it. And let's be clear before I go through the list, 8-0. That's the expectation. 8-0 in these games. You ready for it? You got Binghamton, Delaware State, Drexel, Monmouth, Hofstra, Mercyhurst, Northeastern, Stonehill. Anything less than 8-0 is a failure. I don't want to hear any excuses. Syracuse basketball should go on the court and win all 8 of those games. They should be, in theory, better, much better than all 8 of those teams. So all you need now is 12 more regular season wins to at least get in the conversation for the NCAA tournament. And we'll discuss how Syracuse can get 12 more wins next on Locked On Syracuse. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward, I'm going to give it to Davian Curry. He had that interception early in the game for Syracuse football against Pitt, and it set up Syracuse's only touchdown of the game against Pitt. Of course, the Orange would go on to lose the game, but hey, that was a pretty nice moment for Syracuse football. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning, and just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. And let's break it down. For Syracuse, we do have a pretty solid candidacy right here for the MVP of last week's game against Pitt. I understand that Syracuse lost, but Kevin Jobity does not deserve really any blame for that loss. He had not one, not two, but 3 sacks for Syracuse football. And just like Kevin Jobity delivered for Syracuse, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday, keep the streak alive, fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply, promo period through November 18th. On this week's Poll Friday, I asked you all the question, how many regular season wins for Syracuse basketball? 60% of you all that voted said that the Orange will have between 20 to 24 regular season wins. And I'm with you on that. And I'm with you on that because the expectation of this team has to match the stakes for this team. And you have to figure in order to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large team, you got to win at least 20 to 24 regular season games. In fact, a couple of years ago, Syracuse won 20 regular season games. And like we mentioned earlier, they did not make the NCAA tournament. So hopefully maybe it's different this time around. Now, we left off talking about how, hey, there are 8 games in its non-conference schedule that Syracuse should be able to handle with no problem. So 8-0 is a fair expectation, and hopefully they don't go 7-1 because that means they would have lost a game to either Binghamton, Delaware State, Drexel, Monmouth, Hofstra, Mercyhurst, Northeastern, and Stonehill. I think we can all agree 8-0 is the expectation with those games. But after that, and I know it's not in sequential order here, but for the sake of argument and for the sake of this discussion, we're grouping these games a little bit differently, okay? Should be able to win those 8 games. The remaining 5 non-conference games for Syracuse, that's where it gets tricky for this team. So during Thanksgiving week, Syracuse, they're headed out to Vegas. Woohoo! They're going to Vegas. They're going to be in the Vegas era tournament, and they're going to be playing some pretty stiff competition. 2 of the opponents we already know. The first one is against Houston. Not sure if you ever heard of Houston. That's okay. That team was in the national championship last year, preseason top 5 team in America. That's not going to be an easy game for Syracuse. Houston might end up winning that tournament in Vegas. So you got them first. Have fun. And then after that, very next day, you get Kansas. And I understand that Kansas, they don't have the same preseason hype like they normally do, but that should still be a pretty formidable team against Syracuse. And I don't know if you know this, but they have this kid there named Darren Peterson. He's pretty good. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a top 2, and I think one site has him as the best freshman in America. So you're playing that team and that player second. The third opponent is unknown. That just depends on what happens in the tournament with Syracuse and what happens with the other teams, but they will have a third game in that tournament, and hopefully Syracuse, between Houston, Kansas, and that third and final opponent, that just at minimum, if you go 1-2 with 2 competitive losses, you're okay. That's fine for Syracuse basketball, especially if that third opponent is still a good team, because it's possible that they do play a really good team as their third opponent. That third opponent could be an NCAA tournament team. So don't sleep on the third opponent at Vegas. After that, you got a non-conference game against a team that Syracuse was supposed to play before the Vegas tournament, but it got moved around. They're going to play St. Joseph's. I think Syracuse can beat St. Joseph's. Do you think Syracuse can beat St. Joseph's? Okay. You want to give them a win there? Let's give them a win there. Your final non-conference game, the one that we haven't talked about yet, is the ACC SEC Challenge. They are playing Tennessee on their home floor. Now, Tennessee, really good team. Syracuse, I don't know if you know this, guys, but you are allowed to beat good teams, particularly on your home floor. I actually witnessed it a couple of years ago when Syracuse beat North Carolina on their home floor, when North Carolina was a top 10 team in America at that point and ended up being a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So you're allowed to beat good teams at home, but am I going to confidently predict Syracuse to beat Tennessee even though it is at home? Based on the last couple of meetings? Probably not. So overall with that stretch, if you go 2-3 with 3 competitive losses, you're in decent shape to potentially make the NCAA tournament because your non-conference record would be 10-3, and now you just have to do really well in ACC play. To reach the minimum of 20 regular season wins, which would qualify as 20-24 on this poll Friday, the Orange would have to go 10-8 in ACC play. Could they go 10-8? Based on their schedule breakdown, I think it's definitely possible. The good news for Syracuse is that they only play Duke once and they only play Louisville once. Now, both of those games are on the road, but you only get to play them one time. And hey, if you win one of those games, those are amazing resume boosting type wins. But those are also the 2 top projected teams in the ACC this season. Those are 2 teams that have Final Four aspirations for this upcoming year. So you're probably not going to win those games, but you only got to play those teams once. So that's not that bad. More good news for Syracuse is that they get to play Pitt twice. Now, you might be asking yourself, why is that good for Syracuse? Well, based on the ACC media poll, which you can take with a giant grain of salt, Syracuse was picked to finish 9th. Okay, picked to finish 9th in the poll. Pitt was picked to finish, I believe, 14th in the ACC preseason poll. Now, you're going to play them at home. You're going to play them on the road. The road game, you have to figure, is going to be tougher than the home game. But if you take care of business, you could get 2 conference wins against the Pitt Panthers because Syracuse is perceived by the public to be a better team than Pitt. And then after that, you need to go 8-6 to reach 20 wins at minimum. Do you think they can do that? Comment your thoughts in the comment section below. Once again, the theme of the entire show is this. The expectation for this team, it has to match the stakes of this team. I'll probably mention it in another basketball episode at some point before the season, but they have to make the NCAA tournament. That's the elephant in the room. We essentially have to address it on almost every single podcast. You must make the NCAA tournament this year if you are Syracuse basketball, because what happens if they don't? All bets are off. Comment your thoughts in the comment section below if you do believe that Syracuse can make the NCAA tournament. Now, as far as what's coming up on this podcast in the near future, tomorrow we got a couple of episodes for you all, ladies and gentlemen. Syracuse football, they are on the road. They are playing Georgia Tech at noon Eastern. There will be a full post-game reaction podcast for you all. And then later in the evening, Syracuse basketball. Yes, they are playing a game on Saturday night. They are taking on Buffalo in an exhibition contest. That game is at 7 p.m. Eastern, and there will be a mini post-game reaction podcast. Now, the reason why I say a mini post-game reaction is because if you go back to last year on this channel, we did, for the 2 exhibition games, 2 mini podcasts. That's what we did to recap them because they are only exhibition contests. But hey, they're playing Buffalo. That's a real team. Unlike last year where I think they played D2 teams for their exhibition ones. They're playing Buffalo. That's a real D1 team. Hopefully Syracuse plays well and we can all feel nice and happy after that one. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoyed the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse, and I'll see you all again soon.